December 12, 1899, Pretoria, South Africa. A man drops from a 10-foot wall into enemy territory with bleeding hands and asks himself the question, do I climb back over? He is 25 years old. No map, no compass, no weapons. 4 chocolate bars and 1 biscuit between him and 300 miles of open enemy territory. An entire republic of 50,000 armed men is now hunting him with a 25-pound bounty on his head. This unarmed journalist, this prisoner of war who wasn't even technically a soldier, would be hunted by thousands, survive 9 days alone in hostile territory, and outrun every single one of them. He hid 300 feet underground while armed search parties knocked on the door above him. He crossed an international border buried under wool bales while a bayonet passed 6 inches from his face. And the only reason the 20th century went the way it did is because one stranger opened a door at midnight in the Transvaal coalfields and said yes to a man worth 25 pounds, dead or alive. How does one unarmed prisoner outrun a nation? And why does his captor become his closest ally? November 1899. Winston Churchill is 25 years old. He has already fought in 4 wars on 3 continents, published 3 books, charged with the cavalry at Omdurman, and ran for Parliament once and lost. He arrives in South Africa as war correspondent for the Morning Post and carries in his coat pocket a letter he has written his mother containing 1 sentence. No other 25-year-old in the English-speaking world could write with a straight face that he has faith in his star, that he intends to do something in the world. The Boer War is the wrong war for that kind of conviction. The British Empire, the largest political structure in human history, is being humiliated in the South African veld by farmers with Mauser rifles and decades of accumulated resentment. 3 British generals have been broken in the opening weeks. London is panicking. None of this adjusts Churchill's certainty to a single degree. November 15th. Churchill talks his way onto an armored train running reconnaissance out of Estcourt. It is not really a train. It is a tin coffin on rails moving through open Boer-held territory, visible from every ridge for 10 miles in any direction. The Boers see it coming. They roll a boulder onto the tracks and settle into the hills to wait. The locomotive hits the boulder at a speed limit. 3 trucks leave the rails in a screaming grind of metal. Boer artillery opens from the high ground. Mausers crack from cover on both flanks. The British soldiers scatter for the ditches. The civilian does not scatter. For more than an hour, Churchill stands in direct rifle and artillery fire, pulling derailed cars off the line with his bare hands, organizing the wounded, shouting commands at men. He has no rank to command. He is simply the loudest, calmest, most certain voice in the vicinity of the disaster, and in a disaster that is sufficient. The line clears. The locomotive crawls away, loaded with injured men. Churchill turns around and walks back into the gunfire to reach the soldiers still cut off. A Boer horseman materializes out of the smoke at 5 paces. Churchill reaches for his pistol. The pistol left with the locomotive. He stands in the open with empty hands and a Mauser aimed at the center of his chest. A line from Napoleon arrives uninvited. When one is alone and unarmed, a surrender may be pardoned. He raises both hands. The horseman rides him into captivity. His name is Louis Botha. Churchill will not learn this for 3 more years. He stores the horseman away as the man with the Mauser at Estcourt, unable to know yet what Botha becomes. What a single act of mercy in a cloud of smoke can mean for the nation's enemies leave behind. He is taken to the state model schools in Pretoria, a converted schoolhouse with whitewashed walls and iron railings, 60 British officers inside, and Churchill the youngest, the most recognizable, the only one not technically a soldier. He demands a release. He writes formal letters citing international law with the confidence of a man who has never studied law. The Secretary of War sends back a 1-line answer. That night, Churchill walks the prison perimeter alone, counting paces. He identifies the section of the eastern wall where the lamp does not reach a gap of exactly 70 seconds when no eyes are on that fence. Captain Haldane has the compass and maps. Sergeant Brocky speaks fluent Afrikaans. The plan. Churchill goes first. The others follow up with the supplies, December 11th. They try. The guards change their routine without warning. They abort. December 12th. They try again. He goes first. The others do not follow. The wall is behind him. Haldane has a map. Brocky has the language. He has nothing but dark. And the dark is very large. What does a man do with that? He walks straight across the prison lawn toward the gate. He passes within 5 yards of a Boer sentry who has watched his face every single day for a month. The sentry does not look up. Churchill keeps walking, through the gate, down the street, into the heart of Pretoria at 9 o'clock at night. On his pillow he has left a letter for the Boer Undersecretary of War. Not a confession, not a plea, a thank you card. It explains with formal politeness that he does not consider the Republic justified in detaining a non-combatant, that he has therefore taken his leave, and that circumstances unfortunately prevent a personal farewell. He apologizes for any inconvenience. That note is the key to understanding the man you are watching escape. He is not afraid of being caught. He is afraid of being ordinary. The capital is full of ordinary life. Burghers smoking on porches, women in long dresses crossing under lamp posts. Off-duty soldiers sitting outside a cafe talking about something that has nothing to do with escaped prisoners. Churchill walks down the center of the road like a man with a reason to be exactly where he is. He passes a tram stop, a darkened chapel, the house of the Republic's president. He turns east at the corner he memorized from Haldane's maps and walks toward the railway sidings at the edge of the city. No plan beyond a single direction. East is Portuguese territory. East is a border. East is anything that is not a whitewashed schoolhouse in Pretoria. A goods train rolls in along the siding, slows, stops. He picks a car loaded with empty coal sacks. He runs alongside the coupling, grabs it, hauls himself up and over the side. The train shudders. It begins to move. He buries himself under the sacks and feels the city fall away behind him in the dark. Then the sky starts to lighten at the edges. He waits for the train to slow on a curve, waits for the wheels to lose enough speed, and rolls off the coupling into the ditch. He hits the gravel, tumbles, comes to rest face down in the scrub. The train pulls away into the morning light. He is somewhere east of Pretoria, with 75 miles behind him and 225 still ahead. No map, chocolate softening in the heat. No water visible in any direction. In Pretoria, a kitchen worker brings Churchill's breakfast to his room. The bed is empty. Within 1 hour, the telegraph lines of the Transvaal Republic carry one message in every direction. Winston Churchill has escaped. 25 pounds. Dead or alive, the entire Republic is now searching. He has no food, no water, no map, and no one who knows he is alive. What will happen in the next 5 days? By noon, every railway clerk in the Republic has a description. Slim build, small mustaches, does not speak Dutch, last seen wearing a brown suit and a soft felt hat. 25 pounds is more money than a Boer farmhand sees in 12 months. And the false sightings begin within hours. The Boer newspapers run his photograph next to columns about the national disgrace of letting the most arrogant Englishman in Africa walk out of the capital in a hat. Churchill knows none of this. He is lying flat under a thorn bush, listening to the sound of the grass. He moves only at night. During the day, he holds completely still. He drinks from whatever rain pools he can locate. He eats nothing for the first 36 hours after leaving the train. He licks dew from the surface of leaves in the gray early morning. He follows the railway line because he has nothing else to navigate by. Every bridge along the line has a Boer sentry. He skirts each one by miles through marsh and standing water, returning to the line on the other side. Each circuit costs hours he cannot afford. The terrain is endless, rolling grassland broken by streams that run too deep to wade and ridges that take an hour to climb in the dark. His shoes have separated soles. His feet bleed with every step. He has not slept more than 90 consecutive minutes since the wall. On the fourth night, he hears voices in the dark and drops immediately flat. A lantern swings 20 feet from where he lies. Two men moving through the grass at the unhurried pace of a search party that has nowhere urgent to be, which is somehow worse than urgency, because it means they are not passing through. They are looking. The lamplight swings within 15 feet of his face. He does not breathe. He counts. He gets to 40 before the voices begin to move away. He stays flat for 20 more minutes, pressing his cheek against the cold ground before he trusts himself to move again. He talks to himself out loud in full English sentences because the silence has started to produce things in the dark that are worse than noise. He thinks briefly, and against his will, about his mother in London reading a telegram. He puts the image away the way you seal a letter, not because it doesn't matter, because it matters too much to carry tonight. He keeps moving. Coming over a ridge on the fifth night, the country drops away into a small valley, and there are lights. 2 or 3 buildings, a winding wheel against the stars, yellow lamplight in windows. A coal mine. If you want to understand how operations like this stay buried for decades, subscribe. This channel exists to find the ones. History forgotten. Every instinct of 5 days of being hunted has been installed in him, says, to walk past. In Boer territory, a knock on a door is a bet on a stranger's conscience against 25 pounds in cash, but his body has stopped participating in calculations. He picks the nearest building and stands at the door for a full minute, swaying, running through cover stories that die one after another, all requiring him to speak Afrikaans. He has one thing left that might actually work. He knocks. A large man opens the door, broad across the shoulders, pale, watchful. He looks at the figure on his step, the ruined shoes, the rawness around the eyes, with the careful look of a man doing rapid arithmetic about consequences. The figure on the step says the first honest thing he has said in 5 days. "I am Winston Churchill. I have escaped from Pretoria. I need your help." The man looks at him for a long moment, long enough for Churchill to feel in the middle of his chest the exact weight of the door that is about to close on him. The man steps back. He pulls Churchill across the threshold. He closes the door behind them both. His name is John Howard. He is the manager of the Transvaal and Delagoa Bay Colliery, one of fewer than a dozen Englishmen within 40 miles of this valley. Of every door in the Transvaal that Churchill could have knocked on in the dark, he has found the one where the answer is yes. But what does the man who opened that door stand to lose? Howard does not waste time being kind. He pours Churchill a whiskey without asking what kind. He puts a cold leg of mutton on the table and watches him eat with the steady, measuring calm of a man calculating the distance between his own neck and a rope. Howard has a wife in this house. Workers who report to employers with Boer loyalties, a business, a livelihood, and a name not currently associated with harboring escaped prisoners. He has every practical reason to hand Churchill over, and precisely one reason not to, which is that he has decided not to. He will get Churchill over the border or spend everything he has tried. He takes Churchill out the back door to the pit's head and lowers him in the cage. 300 feet down into total dark, into a worked outside gallery cut into the coal seam. He hands Churchill a candle, matches, a mattress, a bottle of whiskey, a roast chicken, and a small stack of books. Then he says the only thing that needs to be said. "Stay here. Do not move. Do not make a sound. I will come for you." The cage rises. The dark settles completely. Churchill lights the candle. The book on top of the pile is Robert Louis Stevenson's Kidnapped, the story of a boy running through hostile country, hunted by men who want to erase him, surviving on nerve and the refusal to stop moving when stopping would be easier. Churchill reads it by candlelight 300 feet underground while an entire republic searches every road above him. Then he reads it again. The mine is never completely quiet. Water drips somewhere beyond the candle range. Timbers settle with sounds that replicate exactly the approach of footsteps. He measures time by how far the candle has burned. He descends into a life defined entirely by increments. Inches of wax, minutes of silence, the slow turning of pages in the only light he has. Above ground, Boer search parties come through Witbank twice. Howard greets them on the porch both times with the level, unhurried calm of a man whose conscience made its decision and moved on. He offers coffee. He answers questions about English strangers on the road. He sends them away and goes back inside to check on the man 300 feet below his floor. After 5 days, there is a plan. Charles Burnham, an English storekeeper, is shipping wool bales east on a goods train bound for Lourenço Marques in Portuguese East Africa. The consignment crosses the border at Komati Port. Howard, Burnham, and a Scottish mine doctor named Gillespie will load Churchill into the wool wagon at midnight, bury him under the bales, and send him east into whatever comes next. You are in the wagon. Total darkness. Wool bales pressing on every side, on your chest, on your face. The smell of lanolin and coal dust and the specific metallic taste of fear that has no exit. The train shudders. The couplings clank down the line in sequence. The wheels begin to turn. At Middelburg, the train slows and voices come closer directly alongside the wagon. He hears Burnham answer questions from the platform, calm and measured. He hears boots on wooden planking. The train has sat long enough that Churchill has begun to think it will pass without incident. Then a bayonet punches through the side of the bale directly next to his face. Hard, deliberate, testing the contents. He stops breathing. The steel point is 6 inches from his cheek. It does not move. 1 beat, 2, 3. It strikes wool. It does not strike him. The bayonet withdraws. The voices move down the platform, arguing about something entirely unrelated, and Churchill begins to breathe again in careful, measured increments like a man relearning a skill he briefly forgot he needed. At Komati Port, the last station before the Portuguese border, the train sits for 16 hours. He can hear soldiers laughing on the platform. He finishes his water in a single swallow and lies in the dark and waits. Then the train moves again. It crosses a bridge. The wheels find a different rhythm on the tracks, smoother, more even, and the voices outside change. The vowels open differently. The consonants soften. They are speaking Portuguese. He claws through the bales and stands up in the open air of the wagon for the first time in 3 days, squinting into daylight, and starts singing at the top of whatever is left of his voice. He sings as the train rolls east through Portuguese territory, and nobody stops him. And that is enough. And more than enough. And everything. He has crossed the border. He survived. But what does a man do with that? He walks into the British consulate in Lourenço Marques 2 days later, unwashed, ragged, 15 pounds lighter than the man who climbed a wall in Pretoria, and delivers those 11 words at the front desk with the flat directness of a man who no longer has room in him for anything but the essential. By the following morning, the cable reached London. By the morning after that, every newspaper in Britain has his face on the front page. The country is losing the Boer War in humiliating increments and has needed one piece of good news to hold against the accumulating dark. Here is one. A 25-year-old journalist has walked out of the enemy capital with no weapon and no map, survived 9 days in hostile territory on chocolate and river water and a refusal to accept the arithmetic of his own death, and made the entire Transvaal Republic look like fools in front of the world. He boards a steamer for Durban. The dock is impossible. Police cannot hold a lane through the crowd. They lift him onto their shoulders before he can speak and carry him through the streets. He can feel the collective want pressing in from all sides, not for him specifically, but for what he represents. Evidence that something has gone right. He gives a speech from a hotel balcony that he will say in later years was the finest of his life, because the people hearing it had already decided to love him before he opened his mouth, which is the rarest condition under which a speech can be given. Every sensible voice in his life is now telling him the South African chapter is complete. A book deal is waiting. A safe parliamentary seat in Oldham is being arranged. He looks at the book deal. He looks at the safe seat. He goes back to the war. At Spienkop in January 1900, a Boer bullet removes the feather from his hat and grazes his temple. He keeps riding. Pretoria falls in June. Churchill is among the first British officers through the gates of the state model schools. He rides ahead of the main column, demanding the surrender of the Boer guards still inside. They lower their rifles. He walks through the iron gate in the eastern wall at the gate he went through in the dark 6 months before, and tears down the Republic's flag. He releases 180 British officers still held inside. He looks at the wall where the lamp still hangs. He looks at the shadow below it. The gap is still there. He sails for England in July. He beat Oldham in October. He writes in his memoir with flat, careful honesty that nothing except the personal fame earned in South Africa put him in Parliament. He is right about that. And Parliament is where the real story begins. Now zoom out. One decision was made on a wall in the dark. Here is what it bought. Without the wall, no escape. Without escape, no fame. Without fame, no seat. Without the seat, no 4 decades of accumulated biography. The speeches and the disasters and the failures and the returns that make one man's voice the voice in a cabinet room cannot simply vote past. Without that voice, the meeting in May 1940, when France has just fallen and the British cabinet is weighing a negotiated peace with Hitler, goes differently. Halifax is for it. 3 other cabinet members are for it. The man who says no that morning, who says we do not negotiate, we do not ask for terms, we fight on beaches and in fields and in streets, and we do not stop, is a 65-year-old considered by many in that room to be an unreliable romantic with a weakness for grand gestures. His authority is not institutional. It is biographical. It is the accumulated weight of a life that begins with a man hanging from a wall in the dark with bleeding hands, deciding not to climb back over, and the horseman who captured him at Estcourt Louis Botha, the man Churchill could not name, who showed mercy when the Mauser was already aimed, became his most improbable political ally. He helped govern the very country Churchill once fought to defeat. The mercy given in that cloud of gunsmoke echoed forward through decades of history that neither man standing in that field in 1899 could have predicted. Winston Churchill wrote his mother a letter before any of it and told her he had faith in his star. He was 25. He was wrong about many things that year and for many years after. He was not wrong about that. The man who kept the 20th century from going the other way was built in a coal mine by candlelight, reading a story about a boy who would not stop running while outside. A vulture waited in a thorn bush to see which way it would go. It went his way, and therefore so did ours. If you want to understand what it takes to escape captivity with nothing but nerve and the refusal to accept the arithmetic of survival, I already covered the only escape from a Nazi concentration camp ever filmed by the prisoners themselves. The only escape from a Nazi camp ever filmed by the prisoners. Watch it next.